President Obama's next big challenge working with the Republicans will begin in 2 weeks when he meets with the congressional leadership. The Bush-era tax cuts automatically expire at the end of the year unless Congress renews them. The president wants to keep the tax breaks for middle-class families earning less than $250,000 a year. He would let them expire for wealthier taxpayers. The Republicans want the tax cuts extended for everyone to keep the economy moving.
The story will continue in a moment.
Are you ready to compromise on the Bush tax cuts?
I think we're going to have a serious conversation about it. Here's an example where I'd like to think we could at least settle on those things we agree on. I think both Democrats and Republicans agree that for people making $250,000 a year or less, the last thing we want right now is to see their taxes go up. Not only would it be bad for them, but it'd be bad for the economy as a whole. For folks who are making more than $250,000 a year, you and me, Steve, the question is, can we afford to borrow $700 billion?
That's what it is?
That's how much it would cost over the course of 10 years to give us an extra tax break. Look, sometimes I think this debate gets framed as if I think rich people, folks who are doing well, should be punished. Part of what America is all about is going out there and getting rich. And if you make a good product, provide a good service, God bless you. I want you to do well. And then you can plow that money back into creating jobs and building your businesses. That's terrific. What I don't think makes sense is for us to borrow $700 billion to pay for that. And we don't have the money. I mean, everybody's already talking about our debt and our deficit. Why would we want to add to it? Now, having said all that,
the Republicans want everybody to get it.
I understand the Republicans have a different view. And so we are going to have a negotiation. And I am open to finding a way in which they can meet their principles and I can meet mine. But in order to do that, I think we do have to answer the question of how we pay for it.
Congressman Boehner has offered you a compromise back in September. He suggested extending the tax break for the wealthiest for 2 more years and rolling back discretionary government spending to levels before the bailout in 2008. Is that something that you could live with?
I think that when we start getting specific like that, there's a basis for a conversation. I think that what that means is that we can look at what the budget projections are. We can think about what the economy needs right now, given that it's still weak, and hopefully we can agree on a set of facts that leads to a compromise.
Do you want to make a counter proposal to him right now?
I think I've already invited them over to the White House, and there are going to be a bunch of discussions. But I think we can make progress on this.
The point of view of a lot of people is, why would you want to tax or raise taxes on the people who have money to spend? Not necessarily the wealthiest people in America. You're not talking about Goldman Sachs here. You're talking about small business people who maybe make $250,000 a year. Well, why would you want to take that money back when you're looking to try and they've got money to spend to put it into the economy?
Well, the truth is that the way this thing works out, it's folks who are millionaires and billionaires who get the biggest breaks. And it turns out that actually the people who are most likely to use that money and spend that money are actually people of more modest means. And if what we're concerned about is how we can grow the economy, there are more efficient ways to recirculate dollars out there and get people to spend.
There is a perception out there that you're anti-business.
Well, I think there's no doubt that the relationship with the business community over the course of the last 2 years at times has gotten strained. And so I think that we've got some repair work to do there. These were exceptional circumstances over the last 2 years. I think we have to make sure that people understand and business understands that my overarching philosophy is not one in which we have constantly increasing government intervention, although I do think that some of the provisions we put in place to protect consumers, to create a regulatory framework where we don't have a repeat of the kind of crisis we had in the banking sector. Those have to be preserved.
One of the things that drives business crazy is this idea that they don't know what's going on. They have trouble planning. They don't know what the tax rate's going to be. Right. They're not convinced that things are getting better.
Right. Well, there are two separate arguments here. I think a lot of businesses still don't know what the economy is doing. There's still a lot of uncertain data out there, and we're still working through some big problems in the economy. The housing market is a huge headwind. Now, the second part of uncertainty, and this is the one that the Republicans focused a lot on during the campaign, is we've got a new health care law, we've got a new financial regulatory reform law. We don't know what all these regulations coming out of various agencies might be, and so that's making people hesitate. And you know, I think that it is entirely legitimate that in the banking sector, let's say, it's very important for us to write these rules in collaboration with interested parties so that they can start knowing how things are going to work. When it comes to healthcare, we need to be consulting with the insurance industry to make sure they know how things are going to work.
There is this feeling, particularly among people who are among your most ardent supporters, right, who feel a little disappointed, that they think that you've lost your mojo, that you've lost your ability, that touch you had during the campaign to inspire and lead. That, you know, everybody in Washington writes about this sort of aloofness that you have, and I'm sure that drives you crazy. That you've let other people define you, that you haven't sold your successes well enough.
I think it's a fair argument. I think that over the course of 2 years, we were so busy and so focused on getting a bunch of stuff done that we stopped paying attention to the fact that leadership isn't just legislation, that it's a matter of persuading people and giving them confidence and bringing them together and setting a tone. We haven't always been successful at that, and I take personal responsibility for that. And it's something that I've got to examine carefully as I go forward. I will say that when it comes to some of my supporters, part of it, I think, is the belief that if I just communicated things better, that I'd be able to persuade that half of the country that voted for John McCain that we were right and they were wrong. You know, one of the things that I think is important for people to remember is that this country doesn't just agree with the New York Times editorial page, and I can make some really good arguments defending the Democratic position, and there are going to be some people who just don't agree with me, and that's okay.
One thing that's not been okay with a lot of people has been his eagerness to spread that gospel to the far reaches of the broadcast cable universe. It seems like he has been almost everywhere. Leno and Letterman, MTV.
Good to see you as well.
BET.
Thank you so much.
Comedy Central.
Thank you for your time.
America's Most Wanted, and The View.
Have you ever watched us?
Of course. Well, this is the second time I've been on now.
Some find it demeaning and unpresidential. I don't know if you saw this cartoon.
Let me take a look at it.
Body by Bam.
Body by Bam.
From the Daily News?
The challenge right now, and you know this better than I do, Steve, is that it used to be a president could call a press conference and the three major networks would come and he'd talk to them, and you pretty much reached everybody in America. And these days, the closest I can get to that is being on 60 Minutes. But there are a whole bunch of folks who watch The Daily Show or watch The View. So I've got to adapt the presidency to reach as many people as possible in as many settings as possible so that they can hear directly from me. But this is an example of where, on the one hand, folks say, well, he's a little too remote. Then if I'm on The View, well, he shouldn't be, on some daytime TV show. My attitude is, if I'm reaching people, if I'm talking to them, I'm willing to take the risks of overexposure on that front.
You're halfway through, just about halfway through, your first term. What's the most important thing you've learned about your 2 years here? About yourself, about the job?
I think that I've learned that America is incredibly resilient. I think I've learned about myself that I'm pretty resilient too. I'll get knocked down a couple of times. But whatever I'm going through, it's nothing like what families around the country are going through. And if they are able to keep going, even when things don't go the way they want, then I sure can as well.
Go to 60minutesovertime.com to see our entire interview with President Obama, sponsored by Lipitor.